Hello, I'm Simon Adebisi and welcome to highlights of the 2011 Formula SimRacing World Championship. Round 14 is the Japanese Grand Prix set around the famous Suzuka circuit. The only figure 8 track on the calendar, this classic circuit features a tricky variety of corners. Qualifying saw Bono Huis take yet another pole position, edging out Mikko Puumalainen for the top spot. Scuderia Milano driver Yannick Lapchin qualified in third, ahead of Dennis Hurl in fourth. ATR Silverline secured their best qualifying result with Morgan Morand in fifth and Blair Disley in seventh, separated by Jarkko Mäkkönen in sixth place. Driving for the new Ash Racing team, Edward Malakwi achieved 8th position in only his second WC appearance, and John-Eric Saxon and Dimitri de Matos closed out the top 10. Patrick de Wit qualified in 11th, ahead of Martin Gosby, Reino Room and Jim Parisas. Disaster struck Giuseppe Marconi and the world champion Bono Huis, with both drivers suffering from technical issues on their formation lap and being forced to retire. There were more issues on the race start, with Edward Malakwi stalling, and as a result he was back-ended by Martin Gosby, who had no time to react. An excellent launch from Dennis Hurl allowed him to slip up the inside of Lapchin, and Jarkko Mäkkönen also made another impressive start, easily passing Moran for 5th. Patrick de Wit benefited from Malakwi's stall and was now up into 7th, but there was still plenty of drama to come from the first lap of the Suzuka circuit. A sideways moment for Jarkko Mäkkönen allowed Morgan Morand to retake his 4th place, and further behind, John-Eric Saxon didn't quite get his line into Degner correct, losing traction and forcing Room to take avoiding action. Both cars lost control and Room helplessly span back onto the track, slamming into Saxon's go-speed car. Luca Peklaj also spun into Degner, but fortunately all other cars avoided the incidents. Things went from bad to worse for the GT Amiga racing team when Dejan Kostadanov somehow managed to roll his car after using too much curb on the final chicane. Mark Alberts couldn't avoid hitting the Bulgarian, but appeared to have only suffered superficial damage. In the race lead, Mikko Puumalainen was comfortably out in front, once again in an ideal position to take a race victory. His teammate Dennis Hurl was close behind, and in third place Yannick Lapchin couldn't hold off Morgan Morand, with the two Frenchmen swapping positions into the final chicane. Jarkko Mäkkönen couldn't quite match the pace of the top 4 drivers, slowly slipping behind, and Blair Disley and Patrick de Wit rounded out the top 7 with Dimitri de Matos in 8th. However, de Wit would soon record his 3rd DNF in a row, running slightly wide into turn 1, losing control and locking up through the sand into the barrier. Further behind, Stefan Ruhl took 8th place from Jim Parisas after a small mistake into Spoon, and despite heavy impact with Saxon on lap 1, Room showed few signs of slowing down, passing Peklaj for 10th place. Room was soon on Parisas' back wing and the pair went side by side into turn 1, but the Ward F1 driver held on to his 9th place. However, things got messy later on in the lap, with Room carrying far too much speed into Spoon, pushing Parisas off the track and drawing the attention of the race stewards. Several laps later, Room's race came to an end when the Estonian touched the curb through turn 8 and he span across the gravel, making heavy contact with the barriers. Parisas was now locked into a battle over 9th place with Mark Alberts, who had not driven in a World Championship event in nearly 3 years. Alberts had no problem performing at the top level, having several side-by-side moments with Parisas before eventually pulling off an impressive pass around the outside of turn 1 and breaking away. Back at the front, and as Puumalainen slowly pulled away with the race lead, Moran was closing in on Dennis Hurl. Despite being more than a car length behind, Moran outbraked Hurl into the final chicane, taking over 2nd place. Hurl attempted to come back at the ATR driver into turn 1, but Moran didn't quite leave enough room and Hurl was forced onto the curb. As with the previous round, Blair Disley made a very early stop in an attempt to leap those ahead of him. Teammate Morand also came into pit lane relatively early to try and close the gap to race leader Puumalainen. The strategy worked well for ATR. Morand was less than a second behind Puumalainen after his stop, and Disley had managed to leap Yannick Lapchin for a virtual 4th position. Things were complicated by Stefan Ruhl, who was out in front as a result of opting for a late stop. The Too Fast For You driver had no intention of giving Puumalainen a free pass, and Moran took full advantage of the situation, moving right onto Puumalainen's rear wing. Moran made a late braking attempt on both drivers into the chicane, but the Frenchman was carrying too much speed and had to drive across the turf and give back the positions. Puumalainen was running a high downforce and couldn't use the draft to get around Ruhl, with Moran making another passing attempt into turn 1. The Matcore driver then made a desperate move into the hairpin, making contact with Ruhl and dropping him behind Moran. Moran almost took over the top spot through the 130R, temporarily getting in front, but Puumalainen outbroke the ATR driver to keep ahead. However, with the help of lower wings, Moran had no difficulty drafting alongside the Finn, making an outside pass around turn 1. The battle was far from over though, with Pumalainen easily sticking with Moran and eventually taking his place back again through turn 1. But a mistake on the exit of Spoon allowed Moran to get a strong run and make a pass just before the 130R. Several laps later, another mistake through Spoon sealed Pumalainen's fate, dropping him back behind Dennis Hurl. Hurl gave the position back down the start-finish straight, but by now Moran had a healthy gap out in front. Meanwhile, Yannick Lapchin was all over the back of Blair Disley in the battle for 4th place, and with fresher tyres, Lapchin eventually made a successful pass into the final chicane. However, as Lapchin's tyre wore down, Disley started to match his pace, and after a small mistake into turn 8, Disley got close enough to retake his position again into the final chicane. A very late pit stop for Jarkko Mäkinen saw the Precision Motorsports driver emerge from pit lane in 6th place, with a long gap in front to close down. But with fresh tyres and only a short stint to the finish line, Mäkinen quickly caught up to the back of Lapchin and Disley. It took Mäkinen 3 laps, but he eventually managed to clear Lapchin, making a nice side-by-side pass through the opening corner. Further behind, Stefan Ruhlt's race suffered a blow when the Dutchman had a slow spin out of the hairpin, losing his front wing on the barrier. Luca Peklaj then had an identical accident several laps later, only it proved to be terminal for Peklaj, with the Slovenian driver stalling his engine. At the front, Moran continued to lead with both of the Mack Core cars in close pursuit. Pumalainen drove his car to the limit, but with high engine wear and fuel consumption a concern, the Finn was unable to close the gap. Becoming only the 3rd man to take a race victory in the 2011 season, Morgan Moran crossed the line in 1st place, taking his first career victory in just 20 starts. Pumalainen took 2nd place, making it his 4th podium on the trot, and Dennis Hurl secured yet another impressive result, getting his 2nd top 3 finish of the season. Blair Disley held off Jarkko Mäkinen in the closing stages of the race to secure 4th place. Yannick Lapchin held on to 6th, and a very lonely race for Dimitri de Matos ended with a Frenchman taking 7th position. Jim Parisas took 8th after a mistake on the final laps from Mark Alberts dropped him down into 9th, and Stefan Ruhlt rounded out the top 10. Pumalainen now has the edge over Mäkinen in the race for 2nd place, albeit with only a 5-point gap. Nilsson and Kirchhoff's continued absence has allowed rival drivers to get closer, and there is now just 6 points separating 6th to 8th place. Hurl is in 6th, just 1 point ahead of Disley, and Moran's victory sees him move up into 8th. De Matos' points finish has moved him inside the top 10 after just his 6th start this season, equal on points with Saxon. Mack Core have moved 1 step closer to securing 2nd place in the Constructors, with Twister Racing failing to field a vehicle in Japan. ATR Silver Lion achieved a significant result today, becoming the first team outside of Twister and Precision to score the most points in a single round since 2009. As a result, ATR have passed Too Fast For You for 4th place, but it will be almost impossible for the Danish team to catch Twister Racing. Lapchin's finish has secured the first points for ATR's sister team, Scuderia Milano. The next round will be the Grand Prix of Abu Dhabi, and you can watch that race live as it happens. Simply go to psrtv.com on the 23rd of October at 5:30 PM GMT. We hope you've enjoyed today's highlights. I'm Simon Adebisi, and we'll see you in 3 weeks' time for the penultimate round of the 2011 Formula SimRacing World Championship.